The desk is finally all mine. For today, at least. GW sports fans, welcome to another episode of Unstoppable. Today, you may be seeing my face a little more than usual. Unfortunately, my co-anchor Cole could not join us, but he'll be back for the next episode. While I may not be as good-looking as Cole, as he constantly reminds me, I'll do my best to carry on the show. Even without Cole, we still have tons of great content on tap for you today. First, I'll break down the recent developments following the departure of former athletic director Patrick Nero. After that, I'll be joined by two analysts from WRGW Radio to discuss the next steps for the athletics department in a post-Nero world. After that, I'll dive into some updates on your favorite GW sports teams, and to wrap things up, I'll be joined by the man behind the glass, our executive producer, Andy Weber, so he can tell you what sporting events you should have on your radar for the coming weeks. Let's dig in.
Right wing, good. Dively leaking out.
The GW Athletics program has a new captain at the helm. Back in mid-December, Athletic Director Patrick Nero announced his retirement from the position after 6 years of dedicated service. Nero officially stepped down from the position on December 31st, and Tanya Vogel assumed the mantle as an interim replacement. Vogel previously served as the Senior Associate Athletic Director here at GW. Among other positions, Vogel was also a former GW soccer player and a former Associate Athletic Director at Northern Arizona. Nero said he will stay on throughout the spring to help Vogel with the transition. Nero's impact on the athletic department touched all parts of the program. Some of his greatest accomplishments include increasing the athletic department's overall budget and transitioning sailing to a varsity sport. During his tenure, Nero has also helped teams on campus achieve long-term success, as we saw men's basketball return to the NCAA tournament in 2014, and they won the NIT in 2016. Also in his tenure, 12 teams have won championships and 18 coaches were honored as Coach of the Year. Finally, Nero himself was named the Athletic Director of the Year by the National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics. However, Nero has also dealt with controversy during his tenure. Nearly 2 years ago, the Washington Post reported on claims made by former players of verbal abuse by head coach Mike Lonergan. The report led to a school-run investigation, and in September of 2016, Lonergan was fired. Then, in September of 2017, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission sued GW for pay discrimination. Nero was charged with paying a female employee nearly $40,000 less than a male equivalent. The investigation into that issue is still ongoing. The departure of Nero came at a time when many teams are still competing, leaving many question marks for the program as a whole. Many recent hires in key athletic teams are still proving themselves as coaches. Some of those individuals include Maurice Joseph of men's basketball, Jennifer Rosati of women's basketball, Sarah Burnson of women's volleyball, and Barry King of the men's and women's water polo program. The change also occurred along a school-wide administrative change with the hire of new university president Thomas LeBlanc. When we return, I'll be joined by two sports analysts from WRGW Radio, Joey Mamlin and Dan Stetton, to dive deeper into the future of GW Athletics.
Raise high. This isn't just our battle cry. It's our call, our challenge. Because when you are called to Washington, you are called to higher expectations, to a higher standard. We are called here to advance knowledge, to serve society, to change the world. This is the George Washington University, and what we make is history. So stand up, be bold, take risks, press on, push harder, raise high.
Welcome back. Joining me here now at the desk, Joey Mamlin and Dan Stetton, two sports analysts from WRGW Radio. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks.
Right, thanks for having us.
Now, we've talked about how we've gotten to this point with Nero, but now the question becomes, where do we go from here? You look at this replacement we have, Tanya Vogel, and she's very qualified. She was previously the Senior Associate Athletic Director here at GW. She held the same position at Northern Arizona, and she was also a former GW athlete. So, how do we think that her resume here sets her up to succeed in this job?
She's certainly qualified to be the acting athletic director right now. she currently works with a lot of Title IX stuff going on, and with the issue that was going on last semester with the Title IX controversy, I think she's the appropriate person to be handling the transition right now.
And that being said, also she's a former athlete, like you mentioned, so she knows what it's like to be a student athlete at this school. She's familiar with all the personnel since she's been the deputy athletic director under Patrick Nero for some time now. So she's familiar with everybody, and she really knows what's going on.
Well, and I hope that would be the case, is that since she's so familiar with the system, it should be a smooth transition. But you never know what kind of catches. As we mentioned earlier in the show, there are many new recent hires who are were hired by Nero, who now have to work with a new boss. There can be some catches in that kind of transition, but as we talk about with her qualifications here, it seems like she'd be well fit for it. But now, as I mentioned with these coaches, what do we think it means for them? What do we think? How are they supposed to react to this when they have to take all of a sudden? You had an old system, and it could be similar going forward, but there also could be some changes. And how, as a young coach still trying to establish yourself, how do you guys think you adapt to that?
I mean, I think if you're a coach, you can't worry about this. You just got to do your job. When the new president for the school came in, everyone has to be on their feet, knowing that there's new people in, and it's not the person who was hiring them. And if you're coaching, you just got to keep doing your job. And if you're doing well, then whoever the new athletic director is going to keep you on. Yeah,
especially those who are in mid-season, you just got to keep business going as usual. Keep it in the back of your mind, because you're going to be being evaluated at all times, but you really can't let it affect how your season's going.
Well, now you have that as some of these key sports, right? You mentioned basketball, both men's and women's. Just those are just two of the many teams that are still competing, but two of the top ones, and two coaches who were hired in the last 2 years, both Maurice Joseph and Jennifer Rosati. Obviously, they're going to stay on for a couple more years, but at that point, you start to think, have they performed well enough to warrant a new contract? But I like what you said, Joey, in that you can't think about that. You got to keep just going the way that they're going. Now, how are the athletes supposed to react? You can look at how the coaches can react to new AD. But as a player, that AD is someone who should be looking out for you, should be helping you. So how are the players supposed to react to that? If say you're a senior or a junior and you've really gotten used to, you've spent almost 4 years now working with Patrick Nero. How do you think they're supposed to react?
It's really the same thing as the coaches. You just got to keep on playing. It's not like a new athletic director is going to come in and take away a scholarship per se. So you just got to make sure that you're able to keep doing your job. And whenever they do announce whether it be Tanya Vogel or someone new that's brought in, to establish a relationship right there. I mean, I've seen firsthand Patrick Nero's relationships with players. I mean, last year after the women's team lost in the A10 tournament, Patrick Nero was right there with all the athletes as they were really struggling emotionally after losing in that first round game. And whoever the new athletic director is, they have to make sure they can establish those same relationships.
And even with Tanya Vogel, there's going to be a certain level of familiarity with these athletes, because she has been around. I think this kind of goes back to the coaches. It's going to be on them to kind of keep their players conducting their business in the same way that they have been.
Yeah. All great points. Now, how do we think the athletic department can grow? I mean, in his departing statement, Nero said that he hoped his departure could allow for new voices to be brought in, and so the athletic program could grow as a whole. How do we think they can do that? Would it be they redo their marketing campaign? Do they push games more to try and get students? We've always talked about how student attendance at games, even at some basketball games, could be a lot better. Or is it in a way in the teams that they schedule? We've had tons of good marquee matchups, especially for basketball. The Virginia game a couple years ago, some of their other non-conference games, even this year they played Miami, very good team. How do we think that they will grow? In what other areas can they grow?
I think in terms of scheduling, I think the teams are doing a good job of mixing in big name teams as well as small name teams, because even if every single game is a big name opponent, if the team's not winning, nobody's going to go. So the team has to make sure, one, they're winning, and then also to schedule these big name teams. In terms of marketing, I feel in the last year or so, the marketing has really improved since my freshman year. You see a lot more events for student orgs on campus as well. They're offering way more events for alumni to come. I mean, I know they have those tailgates every single game, and those do help bring in people.
For me, bottom line, the name of the game in college athletics is recruiting. You really have to put an emphasis. If you don't have the players on the field, on the court, you're really not going to be able to build much of anything at all. So I think an emphasis on recruiting higher end players. Certainly we're in a region, Maryland, Virginia, there's some very phenomenal athletes all around. I think that is where the emphasis should go.
Now, this is a point we've kind of been dancing around in this whole roundtable discussion, guys, but do you think they'll keep Vogel on as the permanent replacement, or do you think that they'll go and hire externally?
I think they're going to go externally. President LeBlanc, I think he is intent on bringing in people, whether it be from Miami or from past jobs. But I mean, you just got to think of it as a business. I mean, the new leadership at the top, they're going to want to bring in their own people. And I'm not going to say Tanya Vogel can't do anything over the next few weeks, few months that really would make her earn the job, but I just think President LeBlanc's going to want to bring in someone that he's personally close with.
Yeah, it's hard to say what exactly they're going to do. I think Tanya Vogel is the most logical candidate, in my opinion, just because of what we mentioned, the familiarity, the Title IX background, her background as a student athlete at GW. I think the athletes would respond well to her being named the permanent athletic director, and I think that would be the right choice.
Now, it's an interesting tug of war between those two. Do you bring in someone outside who has outstanding career qualifications, or do you bring in someone relatively young like Vogel is, and she already has a pretty impressive resume? It'll be interesting to see how LeBlanc goes, and if you really do think about it too, all of this transition also going on while LeBlanc is relatively young in his new term as well. So, it will be an interesting time, and especially for, how they change up going forward. But now I think finally, guys, what are students supposed to make of this move? We talk about the athletes, we talk about the coaches, we talk about all of these people who are so directly involved with the athletic director, but we also talk about marketing, and we talk about ways of getting students to games. And students might not hear about all of the incredible accomplishments Nero achieved, but you have things like the Lonergan scandal that appeared in the Washington Post, and other students hear about that, and they hear, so if they hear only about the scandals and then they hear that he stepped down, what are they supposed to make of that?
I think most students, unfortunately, only know mostly about the negative stuff, which really is unfortunate because Patrick Nero did some unbelievable things at this school. I mean, I believe it's over 80% of the coaches that are here today were hired by him, and he's done some phenomenal jobs with his hiring. I mean, Coach Rosati is Olympic coach and started at UConn and has all the credentials there. And students don't know about this stuff, and it's unfortunate because he really did a great job. And even in his past jobs, he did great work. I mean, in his past athletic director work, he got his school to the Frozen Four in hockey. He got us, it wasn't directly him coaching, but we do have an NIT title. We have multiple NCAA tournament trips in all sports. And there's a lot of good stuff going on that most students just don't know about.
Yeah, I think most student body just got to hope for, this change in leadership is going to lead to greater success on the field and greater success in personal development for these athletes.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to jump to another commercial break now, but stay tuned for updates on your favorite winter sports teams.
Great journalism matters because it's critical to a democracy that the public is informed and engaged and involved. And that happens by having credible information. And so the most important thing, whatever the delivery platform, whatever the technology, whatever the business model, is that the information itself is coming in solid and important ways and is being conveyed in compelling ways because there's so much noise and competition out there. And so that's what I really want our students to be able to do, be brilliant storytellers, keen observers, and compelling communicators.
Welcome back. We're going to tip this rundown off with an update on men's basketball. The recent schedule has not been kind on the boys in buff and blue. Since they started conference play with a win against St. Joe's back on December 30th, they've gone 1-5 in their last 6. This leaves their overall record at 9-11. The Colonials suffered several embarrassing losses in that stretch. All of the losses came by double digits, and the worst loss came at the hands of Davidson, a game the boys dropped 72-45. Most recently, GW lost to heated rival VCU 87-63 after starting the game off strong. The issue of not putting together a complete 40 minutes is something that head coach Maurice Joseph has stressed all season. The boys flashed bright spots in big games and showed they have the ability to compete, just as they did at the start of the VCU game. Inconsistency in the execution of their offensive and defensive game plans, however, has hurt them. The biggest key for this team going forward will be the play of Jair Bolden. As an athletic guard, he should look to drive and facilitate more, and if he does this, then GW will control the pace of the game, masking some of their defensive struggles, and more players will get involved on offense. With a big chunk of conference competition left on the schedule, we'll look for the boys to figure something out. Despite being a young team, they do have veteran leadership on the roster. Those players need to step up. Kicking it over to women's basketball now, where conference play has been stronger, but the women are still recovering from a tough non-conference schedule. In their last 7 games, the Colonials are 4-3, pushing their overall record to 9-10. This team is not necessarily inconsistent in one area, and they perform just as well on the road as they do at home. It seems that they simply hit cold stretches where their shots don't fall, as was the case in their 3 conference losses to Fordham, Dayton, and Duquesne. These cold stretches, opposing teams gained leads they did not let go of. Every team hits these cold stretches, and if women want to power through the rest of conference play, they'll need to figure out how to work around a tough shooting night. Whether that be altering their offensive lineups, increasing passing, or working it into the paint more, we'll have to see what Coach Rosati comes up with. The biggest key for this team will be the play of forward Kelly Prange. Her impact was abundantly clear in their last game, as Prange's 36 points and 13 rebounds helped GW overcome a tough shooting start en route to a 62-52 win over Rhode Island. Let's put those goggles on now and dive in with men's swimming and diving, where the boys have started off their season with 2 wins. Back on January 13th, GW swept American in Georgetown in an impressive showing. The Colonials set several records at that meet, as senior Gustav Hochfeld set a personal record in the 100-yard backstroke, junior Tommy Wolst set a record in the 100-yard butterfly, and both sophomore Emils Pone and junior Patrick Lersch set personal records in the 200-yard medley relay. The winning ways continued for the boys in their second meet against Old Dominion, as they took that one by a score of 181-118. While there weren't as many personal records in this outing, GW showcased its depth as they had 8 individual event winners. Joining me here now at the desk is our own Parker Jensen. He got a chance to catch up with a couple members of men's swimming and diving. Parker, what have you got for us?
Well, thanks, Sean. I dropped by the Smith Center to talk to Coach Winchester and 2 of GW's elite swimmers to talk about their undefeated season, as well as their mindset as they look to defend their title at the A10 Championships.
The GW men's swim team has found success during their 2017-2018 run. They have a 6-0 record and placed 3rd at the Magnus Cup during the middle part of their season. I traveled over to the Smith Center to find out their keys to success and how they plan on entering the A10 Championships.
Just some hard work between the coaching staff. We recruited well, and in essence, our process hasn't changed from day one, from that first recruiting class we had here when Andrea and a couple of those other late signees came on board, and even as we focus for next season and onwards, I mean, we're definitely getting a little bit more attention. I guess I'll put it that way at a national level, but our integrity and our values are still the same.
The swimmers have also bought into this mentality.
I've usually focused a lot on just doing the right things in and out of showing up early, trying to work as hard as I can every day, and leading by example.
This hard grit and determination is actually what landed Coach Winchester at GW.
Really closely aligned values on how programs should be run, how student athletes should be treated, the opportunities, the values in academics, and that was really appealing to me. So from the get-go, I was always going to be competitive, but it was a good match in the sense of values and integrity of what we look for together.
As the team enters the A10 Championships, they look to defend their title as top-tier contenders, and their mentality that has been shown throughout the year appears to remain the same.
I think this year we just expect a lot more. It's not a case that we're defending last year's championship. I mean, that's last year. We're very much in the mode that we're trying to win this year, and with that attitude, our team is very focused on hopefully putting together a great performance here in a couple of weeks.
The A10 Championships start February 14th.
Sean, as evidenced by their undefeated season, it looks like Coach Winchester and the GW Colonials will not be changing their mindset going into the A10 Championships.
All right, thanks, Parker. Hopefully those hands aren't too wrinkly yet, because we're moving right on to women's swimming and diving. The Colonials are off to a 3-1 start to their winter and spring season. They opened up with a 165-135 victory over Richmond. They then went on to split the doubleheader against American and Georgetown, losing to Georgetown, but stormed back in the third meet, beating Old Dominion 185-113. The standout performer to begin the season has been Emily Zhang. The junior posted 3 individual event victories in the first meet against Richmond, 2 individual victories against American and Georgetown, and 2 individual victories over Old Dominion. With their sights now set on the Atlantic 10 Championships later in February, the women seemed poised to succeed, and we're all excited to see what they can do. With a twirl and a flip, we move on now to women's gymnastics, where the Colonials have started off their season strong, as they always seem to do. Their first meet did not end the way they'd hoped, as they finished 3rd out of 4 teams, falling to Kentucky and Ball State. The last 2 meets have been nothing short of dominant, however. The women finished 1st out of 4 teams at the Lindsey Ferris invite, the 6th straight year the Colonials claimed that meet. They did so by winning all 4 of the main events. The third meet for the women was no different, as they finished 1st out of 3 teams, topping the likes of West Virginia and Towson. The standout performer so far has been Cammie Druin-Allaire. In the first and third meet, she had the top overall score, and in the second meet, she was a close second. Very impressive individual efforts. With a packed schedule coming up throughout February, the women will have plenty of opportunities to show their strengths before the EAGL Championships in March. Lacing up those spikes now to keep up with men's track, where the boys kicked off their indoor season with a strong showing at the Maryland Invitational last weekend. The Colonials set a pair of program records at the meet, and several runners set personal records in a very successful day. Senior Ed Delaverne broke his own record in the 300-meter dash with a time of 37.17 seconds. Sophomore Jared Nelson also set a record as the first Colonial to compete in the triple jump. Nelson came in 4th overall, jumping a distance of 13.68 meters. After such a successful first meet, the spring season looks bright for the boys, and we expect good things to come. No time to slow down now, as we keep it on the course with women's track. The Lady Colonials finished 14th out of 20 teams at the Maryland Invitational, and while the final result was not what they'd hoped for, several individual performers dominated their events. Senior Lauren TeKint smoked the competition in the mile event, besting 39 other competitors with a time of 5 minutes and 9.1 seconds. She was joined by 2 teammates, Hallie Brown and Suzanne Danaheim, who finished with a strong times of 5 minutes and 12 seconds and 5 minutes and 14 seconds respectively. Just as with the men, the women have a loaded indoor and outdoor season ahead of them, so we expect more strong performances to come from them. And now, bringing another new face onto the set, our own Louis Staub joins me at the desk to preview some special off-season content for you sports fans. Louis, welcome to the limelight. What have you got for us today?
Thanks, Sean. I got a chance to catch up with Pierce Williams and Oliver Curry of the GW men's soccer team to discuss last year's season. I had the opportunity to talk with them about the positive takeaways from the fall and how they plan on advancing the program in the future. It's oftentimes tough for a player who has given 4 years of his career to just leave it all behind. But Oliver Curry has a positive mindset and reflected on his personal climax as a player during the 2017 soccer campaign.
High point for myself, I think, would have to be the VCU game because it's always tough to go there and play. They have a band that makes ridiculous amounts of noise and just get really annoying. But yeah, I got to score my first goal of the season there, and then Dylan scored the second one in the second half, and we pulled off a huge win that put us into second for league, and then kind of propelled us into some better results for the last few games of the season. So personally, I think that was great, just to get a big win there.
Curry also commented on the learning experiences that the Colonials went through as they played stronger competition.
Even though we didn't get the result that we wanted, going to UNC and playing an opponent like that's top 10 literally every year, I think that was a great experience for us to see where we have to work, where we have to develop and improve. And I think you could see that in our season, because the next few games after that we made certain adjustments to our tactics and stuff that were beneficial. So even though we didn't get the result, that was huge for us to play up against a team like that.
Pierce Williams, a freshman who played a lot against tough opposition, talked about the influence that the younger guys will have on the team in the future.
The freshmen did pretty well this year, and for the following 3 years, I feel like we're going to have a very large impact and help with all the other teammates, help carry the program. But I mean, all the freshmen I think are going to do really good in the upcoming years and will play a big part.
With skillful freshmen and leaders like Curry, GW men's soccer will look to advance the program in the coming years. Sean, with a strong core of freshmen, they're looking for sustained success in the future.
All right, thanks, Lou. We're going to go to a quick commercial break now, but when we return, Andy Weber will go on camera to tell us what sporting events you should be looking for in the coming weeks. Welcome back. Andy Weber now joins us from outside of the Smith Center to give you a little sneak peek on what sporting events you should have on your radar in the coming weeks. Andy?
Happy spring semester, Sean. While most of us were away celebrating the holidays, our colonial teams were hard at work preparing for winter competition. Men's basketball continues A10 play February 3rd when they face Davidson at Smith at 4 p.m. They are at home again on the 7th when they clash with LaSalle Explorers. February 4th, women's gymnastics hosts the Pink Meet, in which they will compete against William & Mary, Kent State, and UW Oshkosh. On the 10th, both squash teams will be celebrating Senior Day when they play Middlebury. Matches begin at 2 p.m. at the Hillwell Squash Courts. For a more detailed sports schedule, log on to gwsports.com. Sean, back to you.
Well, thank you for joining us on another episode of Unstoppable. That's all the news we have time for today. As always, keep an eye open for our basketball coverage, and if you haven't already, like GWTV on Facebook and follow the show on Twitter at GWTV_sports. We'll see you next time.